situation of the Muslims today and the reasons thereof, and the solution. Basically, what we can learn from the golden era of Islam, and in the end, concluding remarks. So as we know, before the advent of Islam, Arabs were in utter and complete darkness in terms of their moral values, ethical values, and in terms of their religious values, and in terms of their literacy rates. Prophet was born in 569, and when he was 40 years of age in 609 was the time when the first Quranic ayah was revealed. Quran was revealed over a period of 23 years and was completed at the time of the death of Prophet in 632. So this expansion of Islam is shown from the time when Prophet migrated from Makkah to Medina, which marked the first Islamic calendar, and after which Prophet started preaching Islam openly. So during this period of time, we covered the complete Arabian Peninsula, which was the maximum expansion of Islam happened during the 10-year period. During the Khulafai Rashidin, we expanded a little further and we completed the complete Middle East area. Again, maximum expansion happened during second Khulafai Rashidin, Hazrat Umar, who ruled from 634 to 644. During Umayyad regime, we expanded further and we touched the borders of India on the east side, and on the west side we covered up to areas of Africa and a part of Europe. During Abbasid Khilafat, we expanded a little further, so much so that at the peak of the Muslim Empire was a huge Muslim empire stretched across 3 continents. So from the borders of India and Pakistan and Southeast Asia and China, across the Arabian Peninsula, the Middle East, the northern states of Africa, the southern states of Russia, the Roman Empire, and parts of Europe such as France, Italy, Portugal, Turkey, England, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Britain, etc. When I was doing the research, I realized that although all of these countries were becoming parts of the Muslim Empire, the population remained by and large non-Muslims. It was only during Umayyad and early Abbasid Khilafat that we saw a peak of and saw major conversions to Islam. So I dig a little further in terms of what was happening during Umayyad and early Abbasid Khilafat. So the first and foremost, they created a unified Islamic identity across the huge Muslim empire by replacing all the local languages with Arabic as the main administrative language of the Muslim empire. They moved the capital from Makkah to Syria, Damascus, which was more central to the Muslim empire, and they started minting Arabic coins and Arabic postage stamps. The system of Khilafat evolved during Khulafai Rashidin, but it became much more sophisticated during Umayyad and early Abbasid regime, whereby it was moved from a tribal-controlled Khilafat to a monarch-controlled Khilafat, headed by Khalifa at the top, and then divided into smaller administrative political units governed by governors and wazirs. The true concept of madrasa emerged during Umayyad and early Abbasid regime, whereby, headed by ulama, they were more responsible. Their responsibilities were more judicial in nature, which means that their responsibilities was to implement laws, rules and regulations from Deen Islam across the Muslim empire through a system of punishment and reward as per the judicial system. In addition to being a judicial body, with the passage of time, they started taking on additional responsibilities as an educational body, which means that they started imparting knowledge related to languages and legal system and judicial system and maths and science and history and geography. It was because of their role that we saw a much higher literacy rates among the Muslim empire, which was much higher than the corresponding empires at the time. They also introduced the first ever universal state-funded healthcare system open for all, Muslims and non-Muslims alike, whereby hospital and clinics could not return a single patient, and they were working 24 hours a day. They were able to do all of these activities on the back of 2 major sources of fund. So first and foremost, was a very progressively growing economy on the back of their trading activities. So they were traders by nature. They used to trade in gold and silver, in coins, in silk, in spices, in diamonds and jewels, so they were wealthy in nature. In addition to that, they also introduced the first ever progressive taxation system of its kind, whereby they were taking the money, circulating the money taken from the richer segments of the society in order to help the vulnerable and the poor segments of the society. They identified the city of Baghdad as the new capital of the Muslim Empire because of its strategic location. So it was located between two major rivers which would help the irrigation in order for the food production so that they could feed off a much larger population. The city of Baghdad was also very strategically located between two major continents of Asia and Europe, which would help them tap the overland trade route in order to pursue their trading activities. So what they did was they created the city of Baghdad from ground level up, from scratch in terms of planning and roads and infrastructure and houses and palaces, and created the new city of Baghdad as the new cosmopolitan capital of the Muslim Empire while maintaining the overland trade routes in order to pursue their trading activities. The paper-making skills was invented by Chinese, but they used to guard it like a secret. It was only when Muslims invaded China that they got the paper-making skill from Chinese and translated it into much improved printing technology, resulting in huge paper mills. It was because of this that they launched the translation movement in pursuit of knowledge. So what they did was they gathered the books and the scholarly texts from all across the globe in terms of Greeks and philosophy and science and history and medicines, in philosophy. They gathered all of these books and they translated these books into Arabic and local language and started imparting knowledge to the population at large. Since they were doing all of these activities, they realized that they were in severe shortage of skilled human resources. So they created Baitul Hikmah, the House of Wisdom, as a place of learning and scholarship, and actively recruited scientists and doctors and philosophers and engineers from all across the globe to come and study at Baitul Hikmah. Baitul Hikmah became a place of learning and scholarship where everyone, Muslims and non-Muslims, were learning from each other. It was even headed by a Christian at one point of time. So if we look at all of these activities, we realize that this is the gist, the spirit, the practical aspect of Deen-e-Islam in its most practical form. This is the spirit of Deen-e-Islam. We also realize that Deen-e-Islam is not just a religion for Muslims, because whatever they were doing for Muslims and non-Muslims alike. It's a religion for the mankind. It was because of this that they were able to create a model Muslim empire which led to huge conversions to Islam. It was because of this that we are led into an era known as the Golden Era of Islam. This is a huge research in itself. If I were to talk about all the Muslim inventions and discoveries, I would continue to talk for 4 hours, and even then I'm not sure if I'll be able to do justice to the topic. So what I've done is I've picked out only a few of these Muslim inventions and discoveries in order to give you an idea as to what was happening during this period of time. So the Golden Era of Islam is normally believed to be from 8th century to 13th century, because it was during this period of time that we saw a heightened level and the peak of Muslim inventions and discoveries. However, based on my research, I believe that the Golden Era of Islam actually started as early as 634. So the Quran revelation was completed in 632. Within the next couple of years, the Muslim mind was already started working, so much so that we saw a first major invention, the invention of the first ever windmill in 634. Not only that, it was Muslims who gave the world the concept of using natural resources for the purpose of power generation and electricity production. So using wind through windmill to create power and electricity, and using water through water dams to create power and electricity was a concept that was given to the world by Muslim scientists and engineers. The first world map was given by a Muslim cartographer. The first inoculation technique was not by Europe. 500 years before it was given in the Muslim world in Turkey, children were given cowpox vaccinations in order to fight off smallpox disease. The heart and soul of mathematics, algebra as well as algorithms, both have Arabic roots invented by one of the most genius of all time. Not only that they are the heart and soul of mathematics, they are the heart and soul of everything that we see around us today, be it in terms of complex or simple calculations such as calculator or laptops or computers or Google searches or traffic signal or any system or anything that you see around us today has one or both of these concepts as their root. Before the father of optics, people used to believe that our eye emits light. It was father of optics who first described how our eye operates. Not only that, he was also the inventor of the first ever magnifying glass, which was built out of stones, and the first ever camera, which was basically a pinhole camera. Progress in the aviation industry. The first plane may not be Wright brothers. 500 years before, it was Abbas ibn Farnaz who not only invented the first ever parachute, which was built out of silk and feathers, but also at the age of 70 years he managed to remain afloat in the air for good 10-15 minutes based on the machine that he has built. Baghdad airport was named after him. Arab coins used to honor him. There's a crater on moon named after him. Father of robotics invented crankshaft, which is the heart and soul of automobile engines. So every development and progress and advancement that you see around us today in the field of automobiles and cars and vehicles and robotics, we have him to thank for. He has also written the book of knowledge of ingenious mechanical devices, documenting all his inventions and discoveries related to machines and spare parts. There is a reason why we call him father of robotics. In astronomy, before Muslim astronomers, people used to believe that Earth is a flat surface. It was Muslim astronomers who first discovered that Earth is actually a sphere. Many of the Muslim astronomical tools and devices invented by Muslim astronomers and scientists are at the heart and soul of modern astronomical devices and tools in use today. It was because of these tools that Ibn Hazm, along with his team of Muslim astronomers, were accurately able to predict Earth circumference in those times where they were off by only 200 kilometers. Ibn al-Tufail and Ibn al-Nafis are the pioneers of philosophical novel. Ibn al-Nafis wrote the first ever science fiction novel based on knowledge of the science known at the time. Ibn Sina, an expert in medicine as well as philosophy, wrote more than 450 books. His book, Canon of Medicine, documents all the diagnosis as well as treatment for practically all the known diseases at the time, invented and discovered by Ibn Sina. His book of healing was basically a book of healing for the soul, a very, very influential philosophical book used by the West up until 18th and 19th century. He established school of philosophy and he was an open critique of Greek philosophers such as Aristotle. Founder of modern chemistry, gave us all the basic chemical procedures such as oxidization, crystallization, purification, etc. It was Muslim chemist who perfected the use of soap for hygiene purposes and invented chemical bombs. Anesthesia, which is used for all the surgical procedures, was invented by Muslim chemists and scientists. Father of surgery wrote Encyclopedia of Surgery, which was a 1500 illustrated book of surgical instruments and surgical procedures. Many of the surgical instruments invented by him, mentioned in the book, are still in use today. Similarly, many of the surgical procedures invented by him, mentioned in the book, are still in use today. An example is the cataract eye treatment, a very sophisticated eye surgery. He has also given us the uses for catgut, which is used for internal stitches purposes as well as for encapsulating medicines. Ibn Nafis explained anatomy of body, breathing, cardiovascular system, and circulation of blood. So if we look at all of these and realize that this is just the tip of the iceberg, and if we look all around us today, all the advancement and the progress that the mankind has ever achieved in the field of computers and mobile devices and cameras and electricity and power generation and Google and internet and robotics and machines and vehicles and automobiles and avionics and plane, in philosophy, in surgery, in chemistry, in biosciences, every aspect of our life, we would realize that none of this progress and advancement would ever have been possible had this era not been there. So this era was the foundation of all the advancement that the mankind has ever achieved. This era, which is known as the golden era of Islam, coincided with the dark ages of Europe, is not just the golden era of Islam, it's the golden era of the mankind. Never ever before nor after man has ever reached this height. So what has led mankind to the height that the mankind has never ever reached before? These are the first verses that were revealed on our beloved Prophet, and I would want us to think about these verses as these are revealed on a nation which was completely illiterate. Even our Prophet could not read and write at the time, and God is addressing that nation and addressing that Prophet and telling them that I am your creator, you are my best creation, read. And in the very second verse, God is using the help of the signs to address an illiterate nation, telling them that I am the one who has created you from a single blood clot. The basis of these subsequent verses is from the time when God decided to make Adam his Khalifa, his representative on earth. He taught Adam few names, and when Adam recited those names was the time when angels bowed down to Adam. So these verses show that it is this knowledge that has come to us from God Almighty. It is this knowledge on the basis of which angels have bowed down to Adam. It is this knowledge that strengthens us, that confirm our faith, our connection with God Almighty. It is this knowledge that relates us with God Almighty, and it is because of this that the Muslims of the golden era of Islam used to consider pursuit of knowledge as a holy activity because of these ayahs. And in this ayah, God has also told us that man, it is in the fitrat of a man that we tend to digress, we tend to cross the boundaries. This is just one ayah, but there are numerous ayah in Quran that gives us a very important message that the foundation of Deen Islam rests on two important fundamental. One is Iman, and we all know what Iman is. Another is Ayat, and I would like to define Ayat a bit more. Ayat means any sign that if you think and ponder on that sign, you're able to uncover the hidden truth hidden behind that sign. I'll give you an example. You're going somewhere in the distance, you see some smoke coming from behind a building. Now you cannot see the hidden truth, which is the burning of the fire at the bottom of that smoke. But by looking at that smoke, by thinking and reflecting on that smoke, you're able to realize the existence of the hidden truth. Ayat also means to pause, to stop, to think, and to ponder. In fact, the definition of ayat gets completed only when we think and we ponder and we utilize all our faculties. The smoke will remain as smoke. It will become ayat only when we utilize our faculties of sight and smell, and we utilize our faculties of thinking and pondering. In Quran, there are two types of ayat mentioned times and times again. One is the words of Quran itself, the words of God Almighty, that if we think and ponder on these ayat, we are able to realize the existence of the hidden truth, which is the greatness and the wisdom of God Almighty hidden behind these words. The other type of ayat mentioned times and times again in Quran is the non-Quranic ayat, the work of God, the many creations of God Almighty scattered all around us in times and universe and science, that if we think and ponder and utilize all our faculties on these ayat, we are able to realize the existence of the wisdom and the greatness of the Creator hidden behind all these creations. And that was exactly what the Muslims of the golden era were doing. They were thinking, they were pondering, they were utilizing all their faculties in order to think and ponder on both of these ayat. In this ayat, God says that Quran is rahim for those who believe. So I would like to define the word rahim. Wherever the word rahim has been used, it's translated as the word mercy, which is a gross injustice to the word rahim. Rahim has been derived from the word rahima, which is a mother's womb during pregnancy. So it has all the meanings which rahma is for a child, which is in four broad categories of definition. First, it's a lifeline. It's a source of survival. The child breathes from the rahma. The child takes all its source of survival and nourishment from the rahma. Second, it's a protection. It's a shield. It protects the child from anything that can harm the child. Third, it's a source of selfless love and sacrifice for the child. It is said that whatever the sense of selfless love and sacrifice that a mother has for a child is multiplied many, many times in case of Rahma, so much so that in order to take care of the child's requirement, it extracts the required nutrition from the mother's own blood, bones and body without even letting the mother know. It is the selfless love and sacrifice to that extent. And fourth, it's a source of long-term nourishment, growth and progress and development to an unprecedented, unparalleled, miracle-like fashion, so much so that a child is created from a single cell to a complete being. And it was this rahim, this miracle-like growth and progress, and source of this miracle-like growth and progress, this Quran, that took the mankind from that utter and complete darkness and took it to the height that the mankind has never ever reached before. We also know that the foundation of the Muslim empire was based on the foundation of Deen Islam, and I would like to define the word Deen from Quran. If we look at Quran, Quran defines the word Deen in three broad categories of definition. For instance, in this particular ayat, Quran has defined the word Deen in the meaning of the laws. So the first category of definition is in the meaning of laws, rules, regulations, set of guidelines and instructions that defines the parameter of our restrictions and our freedom. Second, as in the meaning of Malike Yawmiddin, which means judgment, which means rewards, punishment, payback, decision. It also means fitrat. So fitrat is those set of characteristics that have been inbuilt in us by our Creator, which are in the most pure form. So the goat, it is in the fitrat of the goat to eat grass. It won't ever eat meat. Similarly, the lion will always eat meat. It won't ever eat grass. God has embedded the instinct and the knowledge to survive in an animal, so much so that when an animal child is born, it knows exactly what it needs to do in order to survive. Whereas in case of us as humans, God has not given us the knowledge to survive. God has given us the learning ability. So, when a human child is born, it's completely vulnerable. It does not know anything, but the learning ability, the learning frequency is profound. It's magnificent. This is our fitrat. So, if we define the word Deen by combining these three categories of definition from Quran, Deen is defined by Quran as those set of laws, rules, regulations, set of instructions and guidelines provided to us by our Creator, the God Almighty, which defines the boundaries of our freedom and our restriction. These are God-given rules and regulations which are in accordance with our fitrat, and whose basic aim is to bring out the very best in us by utilizing all our faculties to their maximum. These laws, God-given laws, pertain to each and every aspect of our life. These are a complete code of conduct given to us and perfected by God Almighty, on the basis of which rewards and punishments are accorded in this world and the next. And it's because of this that God says in Quran that I have perfected for you on you and chosen for you Islam as Deen. So God has perfected this Deen. And this Deen has been given to us as Nemat. Again, if we look at Quran, Quran defines the word Nemat in multiple forms. It's been defined by Quran as a shield, a safety, a protection from lawlessness and destruction and pain and suffering. It means peace, not just peace of mind, but peace in each and every aspect of your life. It means success and prosperity, not just success and prosperity related to wealth, but success and prosperity related to each and every aspect of your life, for your spiritual success, personal, professional, psychological, physical, physiological, personal, professional, for economy, for family, for religious, for the whole ummah. It's success and prosperity related to each and every aspect of your life. In old medieval Arab, when people used to place something on the top of a mountain or a hill or a tree so that others could take guidance by looking at that thing used to be called Nemat, as in the meaning of Nemat Khana, which means height, which means benchmark, which means role model. But the most important definition of the word Nemat by Quran is in the meaning of the unity of nation in terms of common set of values and principles and common set of purpose. It is unity of nation. And this particular definition has so beautifully described in this particular ayat, while at the same time God is giving us two aspects of our fitrat. One is that we tend to cross the boundary, and other is that we tend to be jealous or envious of each other. This is a part of our fitrat. So God is saying that in matters of deen, there is no possibility of any difference of opinion. So if you're having difference of opinion in matters of deen, there could only be two possibilities. Either you do not have the knowledge, you do not know what deen is, and therefore you're having difference of opinion in matters of deen, or you have the knowledge, you know what deen is, but in spite of that, you're having difference of opinion in matters of deen because of your fitrat of being jealous with each other, of being envious with each other. And in that jealousy, you tend to cross the boundaries and you end up having difference of opinion in matters of deen as well. So deen is unity. There is no possibility of any difference of opinion in matters of deen. And if we look at the Muslims of the golden era of Islam, we would realize that they had the Nemat in all its meaning. They were peaceful, they were prevented and shielded from lawlessness and destruction and pain and suffering. They were the rulers of the world. They were the powerful. They were rich. They were successful and prosperous in each and every aspect of their life. They were at the height in terms of the role model. People converted to Islam during that era because of them being the role model, because of their benchmark. They were the rulers of the world. They were at that height. But the most important of all, they were the largest empire to have ever known, stretched across 3 continents, the huge empire, but united as one single empire, because deen is Nemat. Let's discuss the decline of the Muslim empire. In order to understand the decline of the Muslim empire, we need to realize that the rise and fall of nation is not a matter of 1 year, 2 years. We are talking about centuries. We are talking about hundreds and hundreds of years. Many people believe that the end of the golden age of Islam happened at the time of the fall of the Abbasid era. Mughals of Genghis Khan created a very powerful dynasty in 1200 by the name of Mughals of Central Asia, and in 1258 when Halaku Khan, who was a part of Mughals of Central Asia, when he invaded Baghdad, he marked an end to the Abbasid Khilafat and he destroyed the Baitul Hikmah. Many people believe that it was at this point of time that marked the end of the golden age of Islam. Many people also believe that the end of the golden age of Islam happened somewhere between 15th to 16th century, because after 15th to 16th century we do not see any further Muslim invention or discovery. However, based on my research, I believe that the end of the golden age of Islam happened at the time of the death of Al-Mamun, who died in 833. So Al-Mamun was the 7th Abbasid Khalifa. He died in 833. As we all know, Quran revelation was completed in 632. So during these 200-year period, Muslims were governed by an ideology known as the thinker's ideology, so much so that at the time of Al-Mamun, it was a punishable offense to do anything or say anything against the thinker's ideology. So when Al-Mamun died, the thinker's ideology took a back seat and the new emerging ideology was a follower's ideology. It's a huge debate between the two ideology. I cannot go into the depth of each. I'll address two aspects. One is free will and the other is pursuit of knowledge. So as per the followers' ideology on free will, they believe on qadar, that our fate is predetermined, it's been fixed. Whatever happens, happens as per that fate or as per the will of God Almighty. There is nothing in our hands. This is a follower's mindset. As per the thinker's mindset, they believe in jabr, that whatever is our action, our fate is dependent on that. Whatever goes around, comes around. If something bad has happened, it is not because of the will of God Almighty, it is because of the actions of man. On pursuit of knowledge, followers believe in naql, in andhi taqleed, in blind faith, which means that do not ask questions, simply follow. Whereas thinkers' ideology believe in aql, in reasoning, in pursuit of knowledge as a holy activity. Basically, it's the knowledge that connects us to God Almighty, and therefore we need to utilize all our faculties, including our reasoning and thinking, in order to pursue knowledge. This is a thinker's ideology. So when Al-Mamun died in 833, the thinker's ideology took a backseat and the new emerging ideology was that we obey, we do not question, we accept what we are told in blind faith, we follow our religion through naql and not aql. Now since the follower's ideology is the new emerging ideology, the thinker's ideology took a backseat. We all know that since ayat is the foundation of deen, thinker's ideology is the foundation of deen, and when we let go of the thinker's ideology, we are actually letting go of deen Islam. So the gradual decline of Muslims began. Love, pursuit of knowledge, which was a holy activity as per the Muslims of golden era, that started to decline. It started to close Muslim mind to rational thinking, because we are not using our reasoning and pondering, we are using aql, naql, which is blind faith, andhi taqleed. Since deen unites, and as per our fitrat, we tend to be jealous of each other. We tend to be divided into sects and groups because we were going away from deen. And since deen gives you all the foundations, all the boundaries of your restrictions and your freedom, when we started to move away from deen, it is in our fitrat to cross the boundaries, and that started to lead to our moral and ethical decline as well. So much so that if we look at the time when the siege of Baghdad happened, and if we look at both sides of Muslims, we would not even believe that they were Muslims. So the Muslims of the Abbasid Khilafat, they were the rulers of the world, they were the emperors of the world, they were powerful, they were rich, but in terms of their situation, gross abuse of their power and money and resources. They were womanizers, they were addicted, they were alcoholics. On the other hand, the Muslims of the Mughals of Central Asia, they were attacking their own Muslims brothers, but the feelings of jealousy and animosity was so profound that they were brutal in their attack. They slaughtered each and every one in the Abbasid kingdom. And not only that, for the Baitul Hikmah, they threw all the books in the river, they burned down the Baitul Hikmah, and there were scholars who were studying there at the time. They slaughtered those scholars and they threw their bodies into the river as well. It is said that the water of the two rivers adjacent to the city of Baghdad turned black by the ink of these books and turned red by the blood of these scholars. It took us 300 more years to completely shut down our brain, because after 16th century we do not see any further Muslim inventions or discoveries. 300 years later we were attacked by colonization, because by that time we had grown weak in terms of shutting down of our rational thinking, not utilizing our faculties, in terms of jealousy and animosity between each other, in terms of division into sects and groups, and fighting amongst each other, that we were attacked by colonization. Again, colonization is a huge research in itself. I cannot discuss the whole aspect. I'll just highlight one major impact on Muslims. So colonization was a very scientific, very disciplined, brutal suppression at multiple levels. It was a physical suppression through physical imprisonment, physical torture, lathi charge, through physical abuse of all forms. It was ideological suppression through culture and language and inculcating of male-dominated patriarchal mindset. It was an economical suppression by stealing of our wealth and our resources. We were powerful, we were rich, we had gold, silver, coins, diamonds, jewels. All of that wealth was stolen and was used to fuel the industrial revolution of the West. So it was a multiple level suppression. Before colonization, we had been rulers of the world for over 1,000 years, over 10 centuries. We had a ruler's mindset. Colonization happened for just 1 century, for 100 years. But because of this multiple suppression at multiple level, our mindsets got enslaved to our colonized powers. So Muslims of Indian subcontinent were colonized by Britishers. Countries like Egypt and Algeria were colonized by French. Spanish Muslims were colonized by Spain. Central Asian states were colonized by Russia, and so on and so forth. So because of these colonization, our Muslim mind got enslaved to the colonized powers, the slavery from which we have not been able to get out from up until to date. In terms of the current state of Muslims, we are 1.8 billion Muslims worldwide, 1800 million Muslims worldwide, over 50 Muslim majority countries. But in terms of our situation, economically, financially, morally, ethically, we are far worse than our non-Muslims counterparts. There is no innovation, significant innovations and discoveries by Muslims. If we look at the Nobel Prize winners as a benchmark of these innovations and discoveries and compare us with Jews, for instance, who are only few million in numbers, we would realize that they receive over 22% of the Nobel Prize winners, where we, on the other hand, are approximately over 22% of the world population. We have received less than 1% of these Nobel Prizes, 12 Nobel Prizes so far, of which 9 are in the peace category. There is no creativity, there is no originality, there is no pursuit of knowledge by Muslims. Quite on the contrary, Islamic terrorist organization, whenever they occupy the land, the first thing that they do, they destroy the schools and the colleges, creating an impression as if Islam hates knowledge. We also witness the Islamophobia and the growing momentum of Islamophobia. In this regard, I would like to discuss few events of last year. The first of this event happened on 15th March, New Zealand shooting. We all know about that. The terrorist, he took out the revenge against the Islamic terrorist organization by equating its members with those innocent Muslims offering Jummah prayers during their Jummah. He killed over 50 casualties, and not only that, he created a online live video which was streamed online and was watched by over 8 billion people before it was turned down. And in that video, he made it look like fun and entertaining to kill Muslims. So events like these are likely to increase in both frequency as well as intensity. Another event happened less than 10 days after the New Zealand shooting. On 24th of March, Mali Fulani village was attacked. It was a Muslim village in the African country of Mali. Terrorists dressed like hunters shot down each and every member of this village, and then the whole village was burned down. The reason why we haven't heard that much of a media attention, the likes of which we have seen in case of New Zealand shooting, was because the government of Mali was behind this attack. So the government has created a group by the name of Self-Defense Group, and this group believed that this Fulani village was used by Islamic terrorist organization for its recruitment purposes. They were hiding people and children from this village. So the self-defense group wiped out the whole village, killing each and every one, elder, women, children, each and every member of that village was killed. My concern, in addition to the events like these, is also in terms of the response by Muslim and the Muslim leaders worldwide, which is of two categories. The first category is completely distancing yourself to the events like this, thinking and saying that these events are happening to someone else. These do not impact me and I'm not going to be affected by this. The second category is of those Muslim and Muslim leaders who think that they are very vulnerable, they're very afraid that the events like these might happen to us, but they're not willing to do anything about this. They do not have the courage to do anything about this. Even our Muslim leaders have approached the government to help protect our mosque after the New Zealand shooting. We are 1.8 billion Muslims in number. We do not have the strength and the courage and the willingness to protect our own mosque. Another event that I would like to discuss happened on April 21. In this time, the Sri Lankan bombing. Christians were attacked during the Easter Sundays in churches. And I was reading this news and I was thinking to myself that what has gone wrong with humanity that you would go below the level of humanity to target innocent people who are worshipping at their place of worship on their holy day, be it Muslims who were praying in mosque on Jummah or Christians who were praying in churches on Easter Sundays. The news developed further for Sri Lankan bombing, and it was identified that the mastermind behind the Sri Lankan bombings was a father and two sons, a very, very religious, established, wealthy family of Sri Lanka, and the father and two sons were also among the suicide bombers who killed themselves, killing 265 people in the process. So when when Sri Lankan officials raided the house, it was occupied by wife of one of the brothers, Fatma, who was there along with her 3 young children, and she was also pregnant at the time. So instead of being occupied by the security officials, she detonated herself, killing not only the security officials but also her 3 young children and the baby in her womb. I was reading this news and I was thinking to myself that what type of mother could do this? Because as mother, it is in our fitrat to protect our children, even if that means killing our own self in order to protect them through our whole life. What sort of mother could do this? What sort of religion was she following that can compel her to do this? And in spite of these events, if we look all around us in the Muslim world, what do we see? We see the religion being practiced only on the form, on the surface, in terms of language and rituals and qualifications only. We see in the Muslim world pain and suffering and lawlessness and destruction and death and disease. We see Muslim majority countries either at war with each other or at war with themselves, a civil war. And the more I think about it, the more I ask myself, that is this Deen Islam, the Deen Islam that God has promised as Nemat. And the more I realize this, the more it seems that this cannot be Deen Islam, because Deen is promised as Nemat by God. This is one or the other form of Mazahib Islam or Mazhab Islam. This is not Deen, because Deen unites, Mazhab divides. Deen pertains to each and every aspect of your life, where mazhab is restricted to religious expressions only. Deen is evidenced by the presence of nemat. Deen is given and perfected by God Almighty. Mazhab is man-made. Deen is evidenced by the presence of nemat in all its form. Mazhab is evidenced by the absence of nemat. So we do not see right now any shield from or any safety from pain and suffering and lawlessness and destruction. We are in fact engulfed into that. We do not see any peace in all aspects. We do not see any success or prosperity. Instead of being at the height of the world or as a role model of the world, we are being attacked in the name of Islamophobia. So this is not nemat. And more than that, Deen is evidenced by the unity. We are divided into so many sects and so many fiqh. This is not Deen. This is mazhab of one form or the other. And the reason of this is that this is a conversation that our Prophet would have at the Day of Judgment, when our Prophet would complain that my people have abandoned this Quran. And that's exactly what we have done as Muslim Ummah. And this is the reason why we do not, as Muslims, do not have any willingness or courage to do anything, because God says that those who do not use akal, the word used here is yaqilun, those who do not use their reasoning and faculties of thinking and pondering, God will embed doubt in them. They would not have the willingness and the courage or the strength to do anything. They would be full of doubts. And here God is addressing our Muslim leaders, our Ustad, our Imam, our Peshwa, and God is addressing them and asking them that you order righteousness towards other people, you call other people towards the right path, but have you looked at yourself? Do you use your reasoning and thinking? Do you use your own akal or not? And here it's a harsh reality that we follow everybody else. We follow our scholars, we follow our leaders, we follow our parents, our siblings, we follow everyone. But we do not follow one God Almighty. And this would be a conversation that would happen at the time of the Day of Judgment by the followers, when the followers would complain to God that we followed somebody else and that somebody else had led us astray from the path of God. And God would reply that now it's too late. They will face what they did and you will face what you did. There's a basic distinction between humans and animals. As we all know, animals are governed by the instinct to survive. They're born with the knowledge, and their whole life they eat, they prey, they hunt, they colonize, they migrate, they survive, they die. In the end, all surrounded by the instinct to survive. Their path is to survive. We as humans are differentiated from animals on two broad parameters. One is our free will, our ability and our freedom to choose and decide. And the second is all our senses, our six senses, our six faculties, and our faculties of thinking and reasoning. And God says here that those who do not use their faculties are of no use to them. They have eyes but they cannot see, they have ears but they cannot hear, they have mouth but they cannot speak, they have heart but they cannot understand, because they are not using their faculties of thinking and reasoning. They are like animals. But then God goes on to say that no, they are worse astray in their path, because to survive is not the path of humans. And here, God is saying that the worst in the eyes of God are those who are deaf, dumb, and blind, who do not use their akal. And worst not only in terms of all the human beings, worst in terms of all the creation of God Almighty. And God is saying that those who do not use their akal, their reasoning, they are worse in the eyes of God among all His creation. A very, very harsh ayat by God Almighty. And the solutions given by God is that whether you are alone or in pairs, think, ponder, utilize all your faculties, so much so that God says that do not even fall on my ayat, deaf, dumb, and blind. Use all your faculties, use thinking and pondering. And here, God is reminding us that Quran is rehem for those who believe, that if our iman is strong, Quran will become rehem for us. It is a lifeline, it's a source of survival. Even now, if we do not adopt Quran, we will become extinct as true Muslims. Quran is shield, it's a protection, be it Islamophobia or colonization or any evil. Nothing can touch us even now if we adopt Quran. Quran is a selfless love and sacrifice from our Creator for us. And Quran is a source of miracle-like growth and progress for us. We can touch the golden height again. We can take ourselves out of this utter and complete darkness and touch the golden height again, because Quran is rehem for us if we believe. So the solution as per Quran is the rational approach to deen, which works at three levels. The first and the foremost, focusing on the primary source of information for deen. And the primary source of information for deen is Quran. Then lateral thinking. Lateral thinking is that you learn from your environment. You utilize all your faculties and you utilize your faculties of thinking and reasoning. Vertical thinking is that you learn from your forefathers, and whatever you learn, you teach your next generation. This is a follower's mindset. Quran is against the follower's mindset. Logical thinking is fact-based thinking. Emotional thinking is feelings-based thinking. As Muslim Ummah, either we close our mind whenever it comes to matters of deen, or we approach the matters of deen emotionally with feelings. I'll give you an example. My daughter comes from the university, she's very upset, she screams at me, and then she goes upstairs to her room. Now, I am feeling the feelings of anger and rage and being disrespected. I can react on these feelings, or I can go to her room, I can make her sit down, and I can ask her, what has happened? You have never disrespected me like this before. Tell me what has happened. Gather facts, gather knowledge. Base your behavior, your beliefs on knowledge, not on feelings. Pursuit of knowledge is a holy activity as per Deen Islam. And why the time to act is now? It's because the growing momentum of Islamophobia, and by its very terminology, it unites us. It is uniting us, and we can defeat it only if and when we are able to unite under the one Deen Islam. And the other reason is the current pandemic. It is a time of self-reflection. It's a time of self-assessment, self-correction. Now is the time to think, what do we need to do? And what we need to do is to become a Muslim. And Muslim by definition is somebody who is a follower of Deen Islam, not a follower of Mazhab Islam, who is a follower of Deen Islam. And the basic duty for us as Muslim is to understand what Deen is to complete our knowledge of Deen and then practically implement Deen Islam in our lives. This is our basic duty as Deen, and the first step is open the book and read. And my recommendation to you would be that open Quran with word by word translation and think and ponder and utilize all your faculties in thinking about these Quranic ayahs. Do not rush. Spend time. This is our basic duty as Muslim. And let me tell you out of experience, if you do this, the book Quran would engulf you in itself. You would feel as if God Almighty, your Creator, is talking to you directly, guiding you, giving you strength and courage, and guiding you to the right path. It's an amazing experience that I cannot explain in words. So in conclusion, I've picked out few verses from Allama Iqbal's poetry, Jawab-e-Shikwa. These verses are in Urdu, and I'm going to give you a summary in the end. In these verses, God is talking to Muslim Ummah, and God is saying, सफा दहर से बातिल को मिटाया किसने, नूह इंसान को गुलामी से छुड़ाया किसने, मेरे काबे को जबीनों से बसाया किसने, मेरे कुरान को सीनों से लगाया किसने, थे तो आबा वो तुम्हारे ही, मगर तुम क्या हो, हाथ पे हाथ धरे मुंतजरे फरदा हो. Farda means that you're waiting for somebody else's decision. Manfaat means advantages, benefits. Manfaat एक है इस कौम की, नुकसान भी एक ही सबका नबी, दीन भी, ईमान भी एक, हर पाक भी, अल्लाह भी, कुरान भी एक. कुछ बड़ी बात थी, होते जो मुसलमान भी एक. फिरका बंदी है कहीं और कहीं जाते हैं, क्या जमाने में पनपने की यही बातें हैं. शोर है हो गए दुनिया से मुसलमान नाबूद, हम ये कहते हैं कि थे भी कहीं मुस्लिम मौजूद. वजह में तुम हो नसारा तो तमद्दन में हनूद, ये मुसलमान हैं जिन्हें देख के शर्माए यहूद. यूं तो सैयद भी हो, मिर्जा भी हो, अफगान भी हो, तुम सभी कुछ हो, बताओ तो मुसलमान भी हो. हर मुसलमान रगे बातिल के लिए नश्तर था, उसके आईनाए हस्ती में अमले जौहर था, जो भरोसा था उसे कुव्वते बाजू पे था. है तुम्हें मौत का डर, उसे खुदा का डर था. वो जमाने में मुअज़्ज़ज़ थे मुसलमान होकर, और तुम ख्वार हुए तारिके कुरान होकर. They were the leaders of the world. They were the powerful, the rich, the rulers of the world. They were the benchmark, the role model for the world, because they were Muslims. And we are doomed. We are targeted and attacked by Islamophobia.